EDD, Engineering, Design, and Development, is typically a PLTW course that other high school students take as an extra elective. However, in the California Academy of Mathematics and Science, students are faced with the challenge beyond the written scripts of this elective. Every single year, as the senior class takes their first steps onto their engineering capstone, they are faced with a new and harder mission to compete within a span of 7 months. In this course, they are expected to create a company of their own with the goals of placing themselves in a real-world engineering environment, while working collaboratively with many other students. For this year's challenge, 3 teams are going head-to-head in the game of Quidditch. Before getting into our first task that would precede our mission reveal for the year, we all had to undergo an interview process with our teacher, Joseph Carpenter, in which each of us had to prepare a professional resume and a letter of intent for our desired position.
The interview process to become an ED director wasn't extremely foreign to me because I had already interviewed before to become an ED intern. So the questions weren't a lot different, but they were different because I was in a situation that was a lot more intimate than the interview process to be an intern, since it was just me, Mr. Carpenter, and Ada inside the room. And because of that, I kind of thought a lot more about my answers and really thought about how I would fit into the questions that he was asking. Yeah, I just tried to represent myself in the best way I could of who I was and how I would be as a leader.
With the interviews out of the way, our priorities shifted over to our flash challenge, in which we were tasked with designing and developing a device that would comply with the set of restrictions and launch an egg a minimum of 20 feet.
So we ended up on the idea of a trebuchet, and our capsule would be kind of unconventional. Then we decided on using oobleck to protect our egg. So we put our egg inside a bag of oobleck and then we bubble wrapped it, and that was kind of our capsule. It worked. We threw it pretty far and it didn't break when it landed. So we had our capsule done, but we didn't have our mechanism done. The day of the actual test, we were scrambling to think of how to fix our mechanism because it wasn't working. And the trebuchet that we built wasn't releasing at a point where it would throw really far. And so we basically scrapped it and then redid the entire thing on that day, because since we had extra wood. We used the extra wood to just build a new trebuchet.
It was a disaster. There's no other way to put it. That's how it went. We had 3 weeks to build it, used 2 of them to Google Images, see what an egg launcher is supposed to look like, and use the remaining week that we had to panic and build. Most of us were panicking, and 5 people were building. I mean, what group project doesn't have that dynamic? Healthy, right? I mean, first trebuchet didn't work. The second trebuchet absolutely didn't work at all. Group that fails together stays together. If anything I learned from Calc BC is that we have a relative minimum, we have the absolute minimum. Pretty sure we hit lower than that. We're last place, but you know what they say? You save the last for best. Gosh dang, I messed that up.
The egg challenge was a very big indicator of what our actual project was like, of how fast things would go and how we would have to keep on pushing and not stop and take a break and I guess fall behind. And so I guess the egg challenge was just a learning experience that we tried to implement into our actual project.
With the flash challenge finished, our team color of red decided, and our company name chosen, we spent the next week engaged in forming our collective identity. We drafted up our mission and vision statements in addition to our company motto, which was inspired by our recent disaster, our resilience, and the unanimous mindset surrounding the circumstances of our team.
In the beginning of the school year, when we were thinking of our team names, I think the whole team agreed that we wanted something that associated with our team color. So we were Red Team. So we wanted something that had the color red. So although we had other suggestions in the box already for us to vote, when someone suggested Phoenix Industries, a lot of people agreed with the team name and they really liked it because Phoenix, it included flames and it's red. So I think that is how we got our name.
The reveal of our mission did seem daunting at first, but as a team, we were determined to execute the mission to an accomplishment.
So after we got our mission, now we knew it's time to brainstorm to come up with a solid, strong idea. So once brainstorming time came, we divided ourselves into two groups, one for the aerial system and one for the bipedal system. After the two groups got together, we all came up with our own designs for the aerial system and the bipedal system. And after we had multiple designs, we came into a large group as a class and we voted on some of the designs that we thought would be good. After that, we made CAD models and did some testing. And from that, whichever design worked the best, we went on with it.
Having learned about the situation regarding our mission, we were also required to hire various interns to accomplish their own respective tasks surrounding a snitch that implements collision detection technology in Phoenix Industries' set of quaffles to be used in the final assessment at the end of the year. Interviews conducted collectively by the three teams were held for a week in the afternoon.
The intern interviews were an interesting experience. I got to know a few new people through the applicants, and I also got a deeper insight into the applicants who I already knew.
The interview process to be an AED intern was something I was really excited to be a part of because I've interviewed to be an AED intern for the past 3 years. And so to be on the other side of the table asking the questions and looking for students to be on the red team intern team was something I was really glad I could participate in. And so what we did was we did like a speed dating kind of situation, and I was representing the mechanical department and looking for students who could really fit into the technical team we wanted to create. And so we asked situational questions, personality questions, and just seeing each student and what they brought to the table was very different to each single one of them. Like seeing their resumes and how they answered each question, their experiences. There was a very vast range of students. So SPS was the first big presentation our team had to do in front of industry members, and it was basically presenting the current idea that we had for a robot and how it's going to work and how we perceived it developing and going into the future.
That presentation gave us a great time to present our idea to industry panel, and we even got input from the industry panel, and we were able to use that to implement our design in the future. Overall, I would say SPS was a great experience for me because I got a chance to practice my presentation skills and business skills in front of a vast majority of industry professionals.
After hearing the audience's comments, we noticed that we had to improve our performance more effectively.
Our SPS presentation went well. It told us that we had a viable concept for the mission, and that while we still had to make a few changes, we were good to go.
Our presentation was very hypothetically based, as in we presented a lot of different ideas that showed different aspects of a robot, but we didn't have a whole lot of scientific proof or technical proof to show that this would work. And that was the main feedback that we got at the end, was that even though all our ideas seemed there, they were there, and they created a whole bot that would presumably work. We didn't have a lot of proof behind it to show that this would definitely work in the future.
After SPS, we were all left absolutely exhausted and decided to take a day to just rest and reflect on our performance, noting what we did right and what we did wrong. Shortly after our presentation, the interns across all three teams collaborated to hold their very own presentations surrounding their very own company, with the assistance of the directors of interns. Although the team with the most plausible solution, according to the representatives, would be awarded additional funding, our focus as a company wasn't particularly on winning that money. Rather, it was demonstrating to the representatives, as well as ourselves, that we were more than capable of carrying out the mission and being a coherent, organized team in spite of any preconceived notions and doubts. And with that, the first semester of our school year was over, demonstrating to all of us that we would need to put in special effort if Phoenix Industries, as the smallest and arguably most underpowered company, was going to survive among the two other teams. We needed to step up our game and improve everything about ourselves beyond just our robot design. We held various fundraisers such as chocolate strawberry bouquets, Jollibee chicken meals, Uncle Tetsu souffle cheesecakes, Dunkin' Donuts, and more, amassing us huge amounts of profit. With our income, we were finally able to order and test parts in preparation for our proof of concept presentation, which would assess our innovation and problem-solving skills, in addition to our ability to utilize the advice given to us from each of the representatives.
POC was the second biggest presentation our group had to do for an industry, and it was a presentation where we really needed to prove ourselves and show that we could really build this robot and could finish it at the end of the year. And so, since our main feedback from SPS was that we were mainly hypothetical and didn't have a lot of proof, POC we really needed to bring that proof. And so our main goal with POC was to develop a prototype to show that we could fly and walk, and that our bot really had a chance at making it and fully working by the end of the year. And so we spent a lot of time on CAD simulating how this robot would walk and how it would work. And I spent a lot of time on motors and figuring out what motor would best suit our system, since the motors really needed to be able to power the legs that would be carrying the entire bot, and that was a lot of weight. And so once we had that all figured out on the materials, we were able to develop a prototype that was able to walk. And that was a pretty big step for our team, and be able to come up with something that was actually working after so many weeks of figuring out how it was going to work and if it was going to work. And so being able to create a walking prototype and some sort of aerial system that relatively simulated how we were foreseeing our robot to progress, it was a pretty big step for our team.
POC, we did the best that we could, given the circumstances. While it would have been nice to have a functional robot at POC, we still had something we were able to demonstrate and get good feedback on from our industry partners.
That presentation overall was a beneficial presentation for me and my team. After that presentation, we were able to get feedback based on what our robot needs to do and how we can improve it. Overall, during the time of my presentation, it was great for me and my team because we were able to answer questions that we didn't know that we would have, and we just got to learn new things during that presentation. Like, for example, we thought holding off on the battery was just like, okay, to save money, but then the industry professional said that, yeah, it's a good thing that you hold it up and down the battery, because that gives you time for testing, so you don't have to waste resources.
In spite of the difficulties that we encountered during POC, as usual, we had to keep pushing forward. However, a certain unexpected roadblock threatened the entirety of not just our project, but our world as we knew it: COVID-19.
It seems, I think, self-evident that we should not prepare to bring our children back into the school setting. The right thing to do for our children, the right thing to do for the parents, for households, for the communities which they reside, is to make sure that we are preparing today to set our school system up where we are increasing class time, but increasing it at home, and fulfilling our obligations through distance learning and other mechanisms to make sure that we're educating our kids, but not doing so physically on the school sites.
However, we weren't willing to give up.
EDD is not a class that most seniors take, or at least the class that I took. This class is definitely made to be challenging, and this year was not an exception. As test engineer, it was my job to ensure that all parts of the robot worked individually and together as a whole. However, my team began to fall behind due to the many renovations of the robot. As first semester ended and second semester began, I realized that we needed a plan and we needed to put it into action. However, the world showed us that not everything goes as planned. As COVID-19 began to shut everything down, our team began to see that this project would probably most likely not be possible. But at the same time, we did not want to lose endless hours of work. So we decided to make a plan that will be put into action when everything becomes safe again. One thing that this class has taught me is that in the world, whether it be in school or in a career, there will always be unexpected curveballs thrown at you that you must plan for. And as engineers, you shouldn't wait for a solution. You should make the initiative to make a change.
Throughout the whole year of being in EDD, I think what changed most about myself is my leadership, my confidence in my leadership. Although I've had leadership positions in the past, I was able to grow a lot more being in the class, learning how to communicate with others and learning how to deal with problems without freaking out, and basically learning how to communicate a lot better.
In EDD, we do a lot of tasks that at first seem really ambitious, but then we kind of work through it. So I think what I took from EDD is I really learned to embrace the think like there is no box mentality.
Through EDD, I gained real-world project experience, both as an intern last year for Missouri Technologies and with Phoenix Industries this year. I learned more about working with and managing a team of individuals on a long-term project.
Phoenix Industries was founded on the idea of rising from the ashes. The Carpet Initiative for the past couple years has had something known as the Red Team Curse, in which any particular team with the color red was inevitably destined to fail or encounter extreme hardship. While we've certainly had our ups and downs, we were not allowing ourselves to fail. No matter what happens from here on out, we'll continue to grow with every success and every failure guiding us each step of the way.